The magic of The Wizard of Oz hid a nightmare behind the scenes, where actors endured toxic treatments, life-altering injuries, and dangerous working conditions. From poison makeup to life-threatening stunts, the classic film's set was more of a horror story than a Hollywood dream. Let's start with the Wicked Witch. Margaret Hamilton, the Wicked Witch of the West, didn't just play a terrifying character. She lived through real horror on set. Her green makeup was packed with toxic copper, which made her sick. She couldn't eat solid food and had to drink through a straw to avoid inhaling the paint. Even after filming ended, the makeup wouldn't fully wash off, leaving her skin stained green for months. But that was nothing compared to what happened during the Munchkinland scene. The crew used white phosphorus to create her dramatic disappearing effect. It was supposed to be a simple trick, but something went horribly wrong. Instead of vanishing in a puff of smoke, Margaret ended up with third-degree burns on her face and hands. The pain was unbearable, but the danger didn't stop there. Since CGI didn't exist at the time, real fire was often used for effects, adding even more risk. Things got worse when her burns mixed with the toxic copper in her makeup. The chemicals seeped into her wounds, making the injuries even more severe. Before doctors could treat her, the crew had to pour alcohol on her raw skin just to remove the paint. The process was excruciating, but Margaret had no choice. Even after healing, the role haunted her. The film's success made her an icon, but it also trapped her. Hollywood only saw her as a witch, making it nearly impossible for her to land other roles. She was forever typecast, unable to escape the shadow of the Wicked Witch, even her stunt body double. Betty Danko suffered just as much. Margaret had refused to do a dangerous stunt involving a smoking broomstick, so Betty stepped in. On her third rehearsal, the pipe inside the broom exploded, launching her off the broomstick. She spent 11 days in the hospital, and her legs were permanently scarred. Yet instead of concern, the crew's first reaction was to search for the missing hat. Now let's look at the heart of the movie, Dorothy. Behind the curtain, Judy Garland's experience was anything but magical. At just 16 years old, Judy endured a brutal filming schedule, long hours, exhaustion, and an unrelenting demand for perfection. But instead of letting her rest, the studio had another solution: pills. They gave her stimulants to keep her awake and energized, then sleeping pills when she needed to crash. It became a cycle: work, pills, sleep, more pills, over and over again. Judy was no stranger to this. Even before The Wizard of Oz, her mother had been feeding her pills to keep her performing. By the time she stepped into Dorothy's ruby slippers, addiction was already taking root. She didn't question it. No one around her did either. It was just the way things worked. But the pressure wasn't only about endurance. The studio wanted her to look a certain way. They put her on an extreme diet to keep her thin, monitoring every bite she took. She could only have chicken soup, black coffee, cigarettes, and more pills. If that wasn't enough, the executives constantly berated her for her appearance. They called her a fat little pig with pigtails, breaking her down piece by piece. Even on set, the director, Victor Fleming, got frustrated with Judy for giggling. Instead of handling it professionally, he slapped her across the face. That was the environment she worked in, where violence and cruelty were just part of the job. And for all this, Judy was paid just $500 a week. Meanwhile, her male co-stars, Ray Bolger and Jack Haley, were each earning $3,000. The star of the movie, the girl who carries the entire story, was treated as the least valuable. She later spoke about the horror of it all, telling biographer Paul Donnelly how they forced the cast to work days and nights without rest. She described how they pumped them with pills, sent them to the studio hospital for a few hours of drug-induced sleep, then woke them up with more stimulants. Even after the shooting, Judy never escaped it. She battled addiction for decades, unable to break free from the habit forced on her as a child. In 1969, at just 47 years old, she died from an accidental overdose. As for her dog, Toto and Munchkins, well, even he couldn't escape the dangers of the Wizard of Oz set. A crew member accidentally stepped on her, breaking her foot. But while the dog got injured, the real insult was in the paychecks. Toto earned $125 a week, more than double what the actors playing the Munchkins received. The Munchkins were paid just $50 despite their demanding roles. Many of them were refugees from Germany, desperate for work. It's clear the studio saw their struggles as an excuse to exploit them. While they were the secondary characters, the Scarecrow, played by Ray Bolger, faced the same treatment. The role left him with something he couldn't shake: permanent scars. His mask, made of latex, was applied and removed daily, like peeling off layers of tape stuck to his skin. The process was painful, and over the months of filming, it took a toll. By the time The Wizard of Oz wrapped in 1939, Ray discovered something unsettling. His face had changed. The rubber mask left deep, waffle-like lines across his skin, especially around his chin and mouth. No matter how much time passed, those marks never fully faded. But the damage didn't stop there. One of the film's most famous scenes, the moment Dorothy and her friends are surrounded by magical snowfall in the poppy field, had a hidden danger. Instead of using safe artificial snow, the production team chose gypsum, a material often mistaken for asbestos. While it wasn't as deadly as asbestos, another part of Ray's costume contained something far worse. To prevent him from catching fire during scenes with the Wicked Witch, asbestos was actually woven into his scarecrow suit. At the time, the dangers of asbestos weren't widely known, but exposure to it has since been linked to serious health issues, including cancer. Decades later, in 1986, Ray was diagnosed with bladder cancer. He passed away the following year at 83. Although no official link was made between his illness and the asbestos exposure, many believe his time on The Wizard of Oz played a role. The main cast wasn't the only group that suffered on The Wizard of Oz set. Even the actors playing the flying monkeys weren't spared. During filming, they were strapped into harnesses and suspended by piano wires to create the illusion of flight. But the wires weren't as sturdy as they should have been. Several snapped mid-scene, sending actors crashing to the ground. Instead of prioritizing safety, the production simply adjusted the rigs and kept filming. For a movie so full of magic, the behind-the-scenes reality was far from enchanting. As for Cowardly Lion, Bert Lahr may have escaped injury on The Wizard of Oz set, but his experience was far from comfortable. His Cowardly Lion costume, made from real lion fur, turned into a personal sauna under the scorching studio lights. The heavy, unventilated suit absorbed sweat, making it unbearable to wear for long hours. Worse, it was never properly cleaned, leaving it damp and foul-smelling. Lahr had to endure relentless heat, discomfort, and exhaustion just to bring the character to life. And with that, let's move on to the Tin Man. The Wizard of Oz remains a beloved classic, but for Buddy Ebsen, it was a waking nightmare. His role as the Tin Man nearly cost him his life. Buddy wasn't even supposed to play the Tin Man. Originally, he was cast as the Scarecrow, but another actor's powerful agent maneuvered him out of the role. Forced to accept the Tin Man part, Buddy had no idea that the costume and makeup would put his health in jeopardy. The biggest issue was the aluminum powder. Special effects teams dusted Buddy's face, hands, and entire costume with pure aluminum, which created the shiny, metallic look required for the character. But the fine particles didn't just stay on his skin, they filled the air, coating his lungs with every breath. Because the hot stage lights caused his makeup to melt, it had to be reapplied multiple times throughout the day, worsening the exposure. At first, Buddy experienced strange muscle cramps, but he kept quiet, afraid of losing his job. As the days passed, the pain became unbearable. Then, 10 days into filming, he woke up gasping for air, unable to breathe. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors discovered that his lungs had been coated with aluminum dust, preventing oxygen from reaching his blood. His condition was so severe that he spent 2 weeks in the hospital, teetering on the edge of survival. But the studio had no sympathy. Instead of waiting for Buddy to recover, they replaced him with Jack Haley and dismissed his near-death experience as an allergic reaction. They even accused him of exaggerating his illness. Adding insult to injury, they made adjustments for his replacement, mixing the aluminum powder into a paste rather than applying it directly, reducing the risk of inhalation. Even with this change, Jack Haley still suffered a serious eye infection from the makeup. For Buddy, the damage was permanent. His lungs never fully recovered, leaving him with respiratory issues for the rest of his life. The film industry, however, moved on without him. Losing the role didn't just affect his health, it derailed his entire career. And there you have it. It's proof that Hollywood magic sometimes comes at a terrible cost. Did any of these stories surprise you? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more eye-opening content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.